SCP-6570 Service Bugs. Object Class Safe. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-6570 is to be contained in a standardized biohazard cell and should be accompanied by SCP-6570-1 whenever applicable. Staff that SCP-6570 is particularly fond of are encouraged to interact with it socially outside of medical examinations on at least a weekly basis. As of standard cross-containment policy, 24-hour surveillance must be maintained on SCP-6570 and SCP-6570-1. Description: SCP-6570 is an amorphous mass comprised largely of muscle and flesh, covering an approximately 12 square meter area when stretched. X-rays have revealed bones and organs to be absent, aside from a single pair of lungs. Despite this, SCP-6570 has demonstrated a limited degree of sentience and can recognize faces, retain memories of positive and negative stimuli, can perceive visual stimuli. Footnote 1. It is currently hypothesized SCP-6570's eyes reside within its nervous system, and is believed to enjoy social activities. Recovery: SCP-6570 was initially reported to police by civilians off of a rural roadway in Tasmania. Both witnesses received Class A amnestics, with the cover story of an animal collision being provided. Upon SCP-6570's recovery, blunt force trauma consistent with that of a vehicle impact was noticeable. After arrival at the nearest site, medical teams were noted to have difficulty in treating its wounds, due to its unclear anatomical structure and unstable form. After a recovery period of 2 weeks, SCP-6570 was deemed eligible for discharge and subsequently transferred to a permanent containment cell on the condition of bi-weekly checkups for the foreseeable future. Addendum 1. Mild fungal infection. Approximately a week after SCP-6570's transfer, a fungal infection located in a wound site was recorded by Dr. Blur. SCP-6570, while initially appearing to enjoy Dr. Blur's presence, was notably hesitant in allowing antifungal treatment, recoiling from Dr. Blur after administering an IV. Addendum 1-1. Update: upon a follow-up exam, SCP-6570's infection appeared to have lessened in the treated area, though was noted to have appeared around other wound sites in addition to underneath skin folds. Considering this, Dr. Blur brought in the co-head, Dr. Raflez, to distract SCP-6570 while treatments were applied. Despite SCP-6570's attempts to play with Dr. Raflez being largely disregarded, the attention split allowed treatments to be applied much faster. Addendum 2. Medical Wing Transfer. In the weeks following its initial treatment, SCP-6570 has been moved back into the medical wing for staff's ease of access, considering the severity of its infection. At this time, 5 medical staff have been allocated to treat SCP-6570's condition. Procedures will include, though are not limited to, tissue removal, intravenous injections, ultrasounds, if required, antifungal medication, method of application to be at the medical head's discretion, blood tests. Both Dr. Blur and Dr. Raflez will be present to distract SCP-6570 from treatments it would otherwise display distress in. Addendum 2-2. Update for staff. Over the past few days, accounts from both Blur and Raflez, in addition to medical staff, have detailed that SCP-6570 has begun to seek any attention possible, Specifically, behaviors have included attempts to move in front of the door when staff leaves, especially in regards to staff it likes, grasping staff's lab coats, or picking up, and typically hiding, medical equipment, pulling or dislodging syringes, bandages, or towels from itself. It is strongly advised at this time that staff ignore these behaviors, rather than continuing to indulge them, as to not encourage SCP-6570 to engage further. Addendum 2-3 Declining Mood. In the days following the implementation of Addendum 2-2, SCP-6570 has become less enthusiastic in either Blur or Reflez, and started to refrain from attempts to gain attention. This resulted in it beginning to sulk and shift away from staff when attempts were made to play with it. SCP-6570's mood did not increase over the next week, and upon being put under a respirator due to worsening conditions, largely ceased its efforts to play with the medical staff who applied treatment. It was also noticeably less interested in engaging with staff it typically likes. It is to be noted that Dr. Blur brought in an array of soft toys after working hours to initiate a play session. SCP-6570 remained largely unresponsive to Dr. Blur and started to return the toys. Footnote 2. Except a single plush teddy bear, after a few moments of dejectedly examining them. Addendum 3 Treatment Plans. From Dr. Reflez to Dr. Blur. Subject: Treatment Concerns. Morning. Over the last week, I've been growing more concerned about SCP-6570's condition. It seems to be going downhill rather than up. Especially so now that it's refusing to engage us altogether, which has been disheartening to watch. Seeing as a referral of this nature requires both heads to approve, I want to ask if we can delegate this case to the ecology branch, in addition to the medical. From prior research, they've handled cases that fall into our situation on medical treatments before, and I believe they'd at least be worth a try. Regards, Reflez. From Dr. Blur to Dr. Reflez. Subject: Regarding treatment concerns. Morning. I want to make it clear I'm hesitant on this. The ecology branch, and furthermore, whichever department takes this on, will have full jurisdiction over further testing. If they accept this application, we can't take it back. Are you really sure you want to go through with that? From Dr. Meisel, Research Lead of Mycology Department. To Dr. Keaton, Research Lead of Entomology Department. Subject: Regarding SCP-6570's application. Afternoon. I received an application from the ecology branch earlier today regarding SCP-6570. Since both the departments got pinged on this matter, I believe it's necessary to start discussing the next course of action. I would propose to cross-infect SCP-6570 with an anomalous strain of mycelium. It is known for destroying most other forms of fungi it comes into contact with. However, currently it's still under trial and may pose unforeseen risks. Cheers. From Dr. Keaton, Research Lead of Entomology Department. To Dr. Meisel, Research Lead of Mycology Department. Subject: Regarding SCP-6570's application. Afternoon to you too. In regards to our options, I'm inclined to disagree with utilizing the synthesized strain, as we're not aware of its impact on an entity such as SCP-6570 at this time. With that development in mind, however, I did find 5566-Ento was used in the synthesis logs to clean fungal remnants from test rooms. For what we're dealing with, I believe utilizing 5566 Ento will be a less risky option for all parties involved. Regards. From Dr. Meisel, Research Lead of Mycology Department. To Dr. Keaton, Research Lead of Entomology Department. Subject: regarding SCP-6570's application. Evening. After reviewing the logs and speaking with the synthesis head, I believe this will be our best route forward. If the need arises, all relevant information regarding 5566 Ento can be pulled from witness testimonies. With that said, since 5566 Ento's history is locked to your department, I'll assume you'll be able to take the case from here. Sincerely, Meisel. Notice on updated procedures regarding SCP-6570's treatment. Morning all. The application regarding SCP-6570 was forwarded to both the Department of Mycology and the Department of Entomology. The Entomology Department will take priority on updated procedures, with Mycology taking a secondary role. Regarding this, SCP-6570 will be cross-contained with 5566 Ento, which, for disclosure, is a pill bug measuring approximately 1 meter in length and 45 centimeters in height, to assist medical staff in cleaning exterior infections. 5566 Ento will be introduced into SCP-6570's cell after it has been acclimated to the conditions it will be working in. Regards, Dr. Keaton, Regional Lead of Entomology Department. Addendum 4. Cross-Containment. Video log. Date: January 22nd, 2031, 11:15 a.m. Note: 2 weeks after the time the email exchange occurred, 5566 Ento was deemed adequately trained for use on SCP-6570. Medical staff tending to SCP-6570 were put on a momentary standby in an observation room, so 5566 Ento could be introduced without distractions. Begin log. 11:15. SCP-6570, while displaying little interest in personnel beforehand, visibly attempts to grab at staff members' lab coats as they leave the room. 11:17. SCP-6570 slowly moves back towards its pillow after waiting at the door for approximately 1 minute. 11:20. Dr. Blur opens the cell door with 5566 Ento in tow, causing SCP-6570 to perk up as Blur leads the entity closer. 11:21. SCP-6570 examines 5566 Ento before attempting to touch its shell, subsequently causing it to curl up. 11:23. 5566 Ento uncurls itself. 11:24. Dr. Blur leads 5566 Ento to a wound containing fungi, which it begins to clean on sight. SCP-6570 flinches and begins to try shifting away, before being soothed by Blur. 11:30. SCP-6570 hesitantly tries to touch 5566 Ento again, resulting in it curling itself again. 11:32. 5566 Ento uncurls itself. 12:16. SCP-6570 picks up its favorite toy, footnote 3, a plush teddy bear, and tries to give it to 5566 Ento, which, after obstructing 5566 Ento's path, was brushed back in SCP-6570's direction. 1357. 5566 Ento finished cleaning exterior wounds. End log. Note: 5566 Ento was curling itself up noticeably less than the beginning of the session, and was allowed to stay for an extended period after testing concluded in an attempt to promote more social behaviors. Medical staff, along with 5566 Ento's handler, were brought back into the room shortly after. Addendum 4.1 Outside Enrichment. Video log. Date: January 28, 2031, 10:36 a.m. Note: despite 5566 Ento being less enthusiastic than expected after 1 week, SCP-6570's condition had noticeably improved, warranting Dr. Blur to propose allowing it an hour-long session in the site's garden. In addition, it was proposed that 5566 Ento accompany SCP-6570 to see how they would interact with each other in a different setting. Begin log. 10:36. SCP-6570 is moved into the garden. Upon touching the grass, it begins to slowly roll over to scratch its back. 10:38. Dr. Blur enters with 5566 Ento. Noticeably excited, SCP-6570 makes its way toward Dr. Blur and pets 5566 Ento's shell. 5566 Ento largely ignores SCP-6570 and brushes past it at a brisk pace. 10:40. 5566 Ento makes its way towards a lavender bush. It attempts to reach the decayed flowers underneath, but is blocked by the foliage. SCP-6570 lifts the brushes enough for 5566 Ento to reach the flowers, which it promptly picks up and begins to eat. SCP-6570 attempts to pick up some of the dead foliage too, though 5566 Ento quickly blocks it. SCP-6570's excitement visibly diminishes in moments following. Noticing this, Dr. Blur picks up some of the fresher flowers and gives them to SCP-6570 to examine. 10:43. 5566 Ento begins moving to the next plant. SCP-6570 looks for a place to put the flowers down. Dr. Blur goes to hold the flowers and walks to the middle of the grass patch with them. 5566 Ento surveys the shrubs for the next 20 minutes. While SCP-6570 attempts to help find decayed foliage, its efforts are largely ignored, resulting in it becoming progressively less involved in 5566 Ento's activities. 11:03. SCP-6570 makes its way to Dr. Blur, who returns the lavender flowers. SCP-6570 begins to dejectedly examine the flowers. 11:05. 5566 Ento, while appearing disinterested in SCP-6570 before this point, appears to take notice that SCP-6570 hasn't started eating its flowers, prompting it to pick them up and walk them closer to it. Upon SCP-6570 still not consuming them, 5566 Ento walks into the shrubs. 11:10. 5566 Ento returns carrying a twig, placing it next to SCP-6570. After approximately a minute of waiting, it walks back into the shrubbery. 11:12. Dr. Raffles briefly enters the garden and finds 5566 Ento attempting to pick up a rock. He gives it a soft animal toy, which 5566 Ento quickly picks up and brings back to SCP-6570. 5566 Ento emerges from a large bush and brings back the toy. 11:14. 5566 Ento waited for SCP-6570 to consume the toy, though after watching SCP-6570 play with it for a few moments, started to redirect its attention to play as well. For the remaining 22 minutes of the session, both entities were playing. End log. Note: SCP-6570 went to sleep shortly after being returned to its cell. After 5566 Ento finished cleaning off, staff noticed it showed little interest in leaving, instead bringing another soft toy to SCP-6570's pillow, appearing to wait for it to wake up. Addendum 4.2. Minor procedure changes. While treatment relevant for 5566 Ento's involvement has been considered complete, it has been voted by the relevant staff, footnote 4, Dr. Blur, Dr. Raffles, and Dr. Keaton, to remain in cross-containment with SCP-6570 indefinitely, after both entities were noted to grow an emotional attachment. Notable behaviors indicating an attachment included, but were not limited to: 5566 Ento not showing interest in returning to its holding cell, rather dodging staff to curl itself up next to SCP-6570's pillow. 5566 Ento playing with SCP-6570 over cleaning wounds, resulting in multiple instances where medical staff would need to redirect its attention. 5566 Ento sharing its food with SCP-6570. When refused, footnote 5, SCP-6570 currently has no known method of food consumption. It would leave food next to it, or hide it under its pillow. Both entities conspiring to disrupt the medical team, largely executed by 5566 Ento, which would lightly roll itself into staff or steal small to medium items midway through procedures. Considering this, both instances will be moved into a standard biohazard chamber to account for 5566 Ento's needs, now designated as SCP-6570-1. Thank you for listening to SCP-6570, Service Bugs, by Desert. If you enjoyed this SCP, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Also, make sure to follow the link in the description to the SCP Wiki, and vote up the article to support the author and the SCP Wiki as a whole.